My brothers and sisters, my dearest children, November 29th is a day that is recognized by the United Nations as the International Day of Solidarity with the people of Palestine. This is a day that was declared by the United Nations in 1977. The purpose behind this resolution is to uphold the international community into recognizing the rights of Palestinians in their own land and the right of their refugees or their descendants to return to their own homes, to their own land. And by doing so, the international community is obligated to be mindful and aware of the fact that there are displaced people of Palestinian origin, the indigenous of the land of Palestine, who have been displaced from their own villages, from their own homes, and living as refugees, whether within the land of Palestine or outside in the Cybra, as they call it. And these people, by the international laws, by the resolutions of the United Nations, which is a body that was created for the international community after the world wars to organize the livelihood of a human on this planet. We live all together on it. And unfortunately, as we are observing or trying to observe this day, our heart is bleeding and we are unable to cope and deal with the graphic images that are continued to be transmitted to us from the land of Palestine, more specifically in Gaza, and lately in Lebanon. And we wonder, what's with the international community? What's with it? Because there seem to be double standard when it comes to applying resolutions and applying certain laws. We're all aware of the latest international community resolution in which by they held two individuals from the apartheid regime that continue to exercise a genocide in Gaza. But yet we know that the international community did not take this resolution as serious. As a matter of the fact, it was vetoed in the international community, in the Security Council. And this act also continued to be a violation to the so many principles and values and rules that the international community have adopted, whether in the Geneva Convention or the Rome Statute of prohibiting literally the deprivation of necessities of living, such as water, food, medical supplies from civilians during the times of war. Now, let's apply this into what's happening in Gaza. We're not talking about the suffering of the people of Palestine before 1948 even, and the expelling of civilians from their own hometowns and making them live as refugees within their own country or in the surrounding countries or move somewhere else in the world. We're talking about a siege that was placed in Gaza for more than 17 years. And for the past 14 months, the international community, with no exception, is fully aware that there is a systematic exercise of genocide in the land of Palestine, more specifically in Gaza. There is displacement to Palestinians from wherever they were living in Gaza, which is the highest concentration of population on earth in a small geographical area. There is a systematic and a deliberate deprivation from the flow of the United Nations, different organizations, to supply the civilians with the necessities of their livings. There is a systematic violation into the international laws which prohibits from bombing, from attacking civilians in safe areas that are supposed to be designated by the occupier or the enemies. And there is a continuous violation to bombard schools, to bombard hospitals, to target healthcare workers. And unfortunately, in the last week, the total number of those who were killed from the medical care during this conflict has exceeded 1,000. Those are the people who are supposed to be delivering the support and the intervention, the necessary intervention to save the lives of civilians who are caught under the fire and the usage, the unjustified usage of force in the small geographical area of Gaza. The amount of explosives, the number of bombs is staggering. We're far more than what has been thrown or caused as a result of the atomic bomb that was thrown in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Yet, with all that is happening, we seem to leak a lack of response from the international community. In the context of what we're dealing with, the Mighty says to us in Surah An-Nisa, وَمَا لَكُمْ أَلَّا تُقَاتِلُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَالْمُسْتَضْعَفِينَ مِنَ الرِّجَالِ وَالنِّسَاءِ وَالْوِلْدَانِ الذين يقولون ربنا أخرجنا من هذه القرية الظالم أهلها واجعل لنا من لدنك وليا واجعل لنا من لدنك نصيرا. Allah in this ayah highlights to us an important concept, that regardless of how many resolutions can be drafted from the international community or the United Nations different bodies, these resolutions would be only words. These resolutions would be only papers with ink, unless and until these resolutions would find someone to enforce them. And we call upon the Security Council and say to them, enough is enough. You're fooling all the population of the earth. And we call upon the administration of the American government, who is fooling their own people and fooling the international community as being a superpower by all the time abstracting justice and aborting any attempt for the United Nations or the Security Council to be able to enforce any resolutions that will prevent the further killing of civilians and would end the suffering of children, of elders, of women. This is the sad reality we're living in the world we are in right now, unfortunately. But that sad reality is not going to crush the spirit of every person believing in justice, of every person believing in morals and principles, regardless of their faith background and cultural heritage. When we go to different events and functions, we will see that those who are attending and supporting the Palestinian cause, events and activities are from different cultural background, are from different faith background, because they believe that this is not an issue that pertains only to a small group, which is the Palestinian who are living in their land. It is a matter that affects the whole humanity. And unless humanity is willing to wake up and do something about it, then the whole world will be suffering. And we're seeing where the idiots, leaders of the world, are leading the whole humanity on earth too. And forgive me for using bold terms, because I can't find any other justification or any way to describe these cowards who know by their intelligence, resources, what is really happening in the world. But they continue to look for their own interest and protect their own seats and protect their own positions and protect their own wealth and protect their own things, and ignoring the suffering of the rest of the humanity on this planet that we're living in, the earth. We will not be defeated. We will not be intimidated. Our spirit will not crush. Because what we're seeing from the children of Gaza, what we're seeing from the elders of Gaza, what we're seeing from the women of Gaza, exceeds what the expectation of anyone else from the leaderships of this world. A few days ago, I was watching one of the aunties in Gaza in one of the events in which they were commemorating the achievement of children for Quran memorization. And she stood up holding the mic and delivered a few words with broken language. Not a classic language to indicate that her level of education is not that high, but the words she said were far more beyond than any word I have heard from the most knowledgeable Imam in the Muslim Ummah on the earth. She was speaking from the heart. And she was demonstrating her belief in the mighty Allah Azza wa Jal and its promise that regardless of how tough and difficult situations could be, the victory of Allah is always there to those who deserves it. And she said to the international community leadership and the Muslim leadership, go enjoy your life. We're sorry to spoil your days and nights when you watch what happens to us. We know it's painful and we know it's impacting your sensitive emotions. Sorry for that. But for us, we have Allah, and Allah is more enough for us than all of your power and political influence. When you hear these words from an elder, an auntie, you feel that, subhanallah, this is an ummah that will never be defeated by its spirit. This is an ummah that Allah the Mighty is taking care of. This is an ummah whom Allah Azza wa Jal will be facilitating for an average individual to be able to do something to support the deen of Allah. What's in it for us? I've stood here many times and I've repeated myself, and I'll continue to repeat myself, because we cannot afford to be exhausted. We cannot afford to feel tired. We cannot afford to be depressed. I was asked this question last night with a group of young people who have an event commemorating this issue and talking about the fatigue that associated normally with the long struggle of activists in the right path. And I said to them, we cannot afford to be tired, because we cannot say anything to the children of Gaza, to the mothers of Gaza, to the elders of Gaza, who are on a daily basis continue to see ugly reality of the death and destruction of their own homes and the killing of their own children. We continuously hear about every day's bomb falling into schools and residential areas. And we're continuously seeing people struggling with their own hands, not with machines, trying to remove the rebel so that they are able to take the deceased, those whose bodies have been torn to pieces, so they can honor them adequately by burying them in an honorable way. That's the reality we're living in, brothers and sisters. I'm sorry to being bold, but this is what we're dealing with in the Muslim Ummah. The minimum we can do is not to give up. The minimum we can do is to continue to make our dua to Allah Azza wa Jal, believing in the power of dua. After all, وَمَا النَّصْرُ إِلَّا مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. Victory is none but from Allah Azza wa Jal. He's the one who provides it. He provides it to those who deserves it. And Allah Azza wa Jal is testing the people of Gaza. And before He tests the people of Gaza, He's testing each one of us to see how are we reacting to what is happening to our brothers and sisters in Gaza. Are we just going on in our life without being concerned about what's happening? Or are we impacted? Yes, indeed, it's been too long. And the question I was asked yesterday, well, what can we do? Our feelings are numb. I said, this is not a question. Yes, our feelings are numb, but the people of Gaza, the stomach is empty. Their wounds is still infected. They're unable to get a closure to their grieving as they have lost multiple members of their families. We cannot afford it. We will continue to make dua from the heart, and will continue to be engaged in a civil manner in the country we're living in, which we believe in its moral principles and values. And will continue to push our officials to wake up to their morals and principle values and tell them, stand up for Canada. Stand up for Canada, because you're letting Canada down by keeping your mouth shut and by playing dumb or not knowing and not pretending not to know what's happening behind your back, because you know it clearly. The reports are in your hands and you read it every day. You know exactly what our taxpayer money, where our taxpayer money is going. You know exactly there are still companies who are sending materials that will contribute to the killing of children in Gaza. That's a fact. We'll confront them with it. And we'll tell them that if you want to represent us, you got to be honest with yourself and with your constituency. We'll continue to engage in whatever advocacy work we're able to do in a civil manner. We'll continue to make our voice heard. We'll continue to partner and lobby with those around us or from different faith and cultural background, so we can make our voice heard and our point crossed. We'll continue to exercise boycotting to those companies who are boldly saying they're supporting the killing of children and civilians in Gaza and Palestine, because they don't deserve the support economically to their businesses. And we'll continue on the top of everything to do what I am asking each one of you, and you have been asked by the brothers to do, to support your brothers and sisters in Gaza. Yes, indeed, UNICEF is being shut down deliberately to exercise this deprivation for the civilians in Gaza. And this is what I am unable to digest and understand. There are resolutions by Geneva, by the Rome statutes. At the same time, the one who wants to shut down these relief aids are the one to be claiming to be in the position of governing the affairs of the world, to be bragging about the principle and moral values, about the human rights. How dare you to contradict yourself and violate the principles and moral values that were laid for human to live by on this planet that we're living in. Be prepared to answer Allah in the day of judgment when He say, my servant, I was hungry and he did not feed me. I was thirsty and he did not quench my thirst. I was sick and you never paid attention to my suffering. And when you will be saying, Ya Allah, you are the mighty, how could I do that to you? How could this happen to you? And he will be saying to you, my servant was hungry and he knew about it, but you did nothing. My servant was thirsty and he knew about it and he did nothing. My servants, the children of Gaza, are infected, are wounded, are dealing with transmitted diseases, infectious diseases that were rooted out from the earth, and you did nothing about it. If you're counting on UNICEF, UNICEF is packing and leaving. If you're counting on those who play double standard, you're counting on illusions. It's you who can do it, and will do it by the will of Allah Azza wa Jal. وأقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه يغفر لكم المستغفرين. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. As I'm concluding my khutbah, my brothers from the IDRF are outside. May Allah bless them and give them barakah in their time. Let's show Allah Azza wa Jal first of all that we're Allah concerned, and let's inshallah help them out to be able to do their job with whatever challenges and difficulties they're facing on the ground here and on the ground there. May Allah Azza wa Jal make it easy, Ya Rabbi. Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim. Wa barik Allahumma ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim fil alamin innaka hamidun majid. Allahumma inna abiduka abna'u abidika abna'u ima'ika nawasina ya Rabbi biyadika madin ya Rabbi fina hukmuka adlun fina qada'uka nas'aluka Allahumma bikulli ismin huwa laka sammayta bihi nafsak anzaltahu fi kitabika aw 'allamtahu ahadan من خلقك أو استأثرت به في علم الغيب عندك بأن تجعل القرآن العظيم ربيع قلوبنا يا رب. اللهم اجعله جلاء لهمومنا وأحزاننا. اللهم ندعوك في هذا اليوم المبارك وندعوك في هذه الساعة الفاضلة وندعوك في هذا المكان المبارك يا رب بأن تفرج هم وغم المكروبين في الأرض يا رب العالمين. اللهم ارحم أمة نبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم انزع الوهن من قلوبنا ووفقنا واستخدمنا لنصرة دينك. اللهم ارحم أهلنا في غزة وفي لبنان وفي السودان وفي الصومال وفي كشمير وفي منمار وفي كل بقاع الأرض يا رب العالمين. اللهم نسألك برحمتك بأن تمن علينا بالصلاة في المسجد الأقصى آمنين مطمئنين فإنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم نسألك حسن الختام. اللهم اجعلها الشهادة في سبيلك فإنك على كل شيء قدير. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وأقم الصلاة.